It's the Ugly American Werewolf in London rock podcast with your hosts, the Wolf and Action Jackson, who are keeping rock alive by talking classic rock, hard rock, progressive rock, heavy metal, 80s music, early MTV, UK vs. US chart success, and much more. This is the home of classic album and live concert reviews and your place for interviews with artists and legends. You're rocking with the Wolf. Hey out there, rock and rollers. Welcome to episode number 182 of the Ugly American Werewolf in London rock podcast. Brought to you by me, your host, Mac B. the Wolf. And I will be joined, as always, by my partner in crime from the East Coast of the United States, Gary Action Jackson. And we appreciate you guys tuning in to all of our previous episodes. We had a run of 40-year anniversaries here. Last week was Dio's The Last in Line as it turned 40. Before that was Prince's Purple Rain as it turned 40. And before that was Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA as it turns 40. You know you're old when some of the best albums you grew up with are turning 40. And that's certainly the case for me and Jackson. And if you're listening, my guess is it's the case for you as well. And we appreciate you tuning in. And if you're in our age range, you will know the special guest that we have on the show today. And that's Guy Fletcher, an amazing keyboardist and arranger and producer who was in Dire Straits back in the day, was part of the enormous Brothers in Arms album, and was then Mark Knopfler's right-hand man for the rest of his solo career. Yes, Mark wanted to move on and break up Dire Straits. But he's like, okay, everybody else can go. But you, Guy Fletcher, I need you around. And he's been with Mark ever since. All of Mark's amazing solo albums, the soundtracks he continues to make, every tour he's done, all the way up to Mark's most recent One Deep River, which came out here recently, and it's brilliant, just like all of Mark's solo albums are. But we're not just going to talk about Guy's amazing career. Mark and Guy worked on a charity single on Mark's classic song, Going Home, from Local Hero, a song that they loved, and he closed the set with it for many years. But as a benefit to Teenage Cancer Trust in the UK and Teenage Cancer America, they reworked the song, and Mark added some new parts to it. And then that led to other legends coming in, like Jeff Beck and David Gilmour and Eric Clapton and Pete Townshend and Steve Cropper and Peter Frampton and Joe Satriani, and the list goes on and on. So Guy produced this now 10-minute single that featured all these amazing artists. We're talking about Sting and Ringo Starr and Sheryl Crow and Derek Trucks and Susan Tedeschi. I mean, everyone you can think of. And it has the most amazing cover. It's like, how could they get all those people in one place? Well, some people sent their stuff in. But they took the artist, Sir Peter Blake, to give it a Sgt. Pepper's kind of feel and put pictures of all these folks from over the years on there. You can see Orianthi up high where you can see her. You can see Joe Bonamassa. You can see Bruce Springsteen, Joan Jett. You can see all these amazing legends, not to mention Mark and, of course, Guy Fletcher. So Guy's going to talk a little bit about the charity. He's going to talk about how he put this together as he was the producer of this amazing single. But first, we do have a little bit of business to take care of. As always, we like to mention that we are proud members of the Pantheon Podcast Network, a family of about 100 different shows. There really is something in there for everyone. You can follow at Pantheon Pods or learn more at pantheonpodcast.com. And we have to give an amazing shout out to our sponsor, rerecording.com, who are based in the UK, folks, and they have over 250,000 items in stock, but they ship all over the world. And yes, they have some killer Dire Straits stuff and Mark Knopfler stuff, whether you're looking for CDs or LPs or singles or tour programs or imports, they've got it in stock. And if you use our code UGLY, UGLY, when you check out, you can save 10% off one entire order, not just one item. So don't just buy one thing and save yourself a small 10%. Buy a bunch of stuff. Buy those rare imports. Buy those hard-to-find first edition print albums. Buy whatever your heart desires. And use code UGLY and save yourself a big fat 10%. It's a one-time code, but it's not just for one item. It's for one entire order. Now back to Guy Fletcher. Guy's amazing. I've admired him for many years. And it's a real privilege to do this show and to get artists like Guy on to not only talk about the wonderful things they're doing, like the Going Home Guitar Hero single for Teenage Cancer Trust, but then also to talk a little bit about playing with Roxy Music, playing in Dire Straits, playing with Mark Knopfler, and having a lot of fun over a long career. So let's jump into it. We had so much fun on this one. We are talking to Guy Fletcher of Dire Straits and Mark Knopfler's band on the new charity single, Going Home, here on The Wolf. Gaius Maximus. That's awesome. See, right there, we're already off to a good start.
I hope so, yes.
And there he is.
Hello, gentlemen.
Hello, Guy. How are you this afternoon?
I'm fine, Mac. How are you?
Very well. Hey, thank you for joining us here on the Ugly American Werewolf in London.
It's my pleasure. I love your title.
Well, thank you. When I started the show, I lived about 6 blocks from Abbey Road Studios, just at the end of Westminster there.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was apropos. And when I moved back to America, I said, "You're going to change the name of the show?" I'm like, "No way. People give me too many compliments on the show."
That's right. Well, great.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I know your time is precious, and we have a great many questions to get to. I am Mac, and this is Action Jackson here.
Action Jackson. I like it.
Thanks so much for being with us.
That's a pleasure.
And I know that you came on to talk about Going Home, so let's go ahead and jump into that.
Sure.
This is an amazing undertaking that you went into head first here, and of course you may see that I have a few of Mark's solo albums over my shoulder there.
I spotted that. Yeah.
Yes, I have
hard to miss.
Plenty more here that we can talk about at some time that you worked on, but you're the producer of this amazing song that I know that Mark likes. He's been doing it, he kind of closes his shows with it most of the time. He's very proud of it.
That's right.
But then this opportunity to do a charity single came up, not unlike Do They Know It's Christmas or We Are the World, except you're not just using voices. You're using many of the greatest guitar players of the last 60 years. Not the easiest thing to produce and put together, Guy. How did all this kind of come together, and how did you become the keeper of the keys on this thing?
Okay. Well, it's quite a long story, so I'll try and keep it short. The idea came about through a guy called Peter Bradley, who's involved with the charities, particularly the Buddy Holly Foundation. And he and a DJ called Mike Reed in London got together and were trying to think of ways to generate some money for the teenage cancer charities. And it was Mike who had the brainwave to use the song Going Home. So they went ahead and did a little recording in Nashville with some session guys.
Okay.
And they then gave it to Mark and I and asked if Mark would like to play on it. And Mark said, well, yeah, of course. It was kind of basic. The intro they had at the time was kind of a free form thing. And I guess they were hoping that as people came on board, it would develop. And then I had the idea to get rid of that intro and put on something that was more like the original intro, because by sheer coincidence, we had recorded that track as a demo for the Local Hero musical in 2016.
Oh, okay.
We had that plus a load of songs that were completely unused, and it was with Mark's band. And I thought, well, it would be great if I can just tack that on. So I spent a day editing it and rebuilding the intro completely. And at that point, the charity said, well, you really need to produce this. And I gladly accepted. And then once Mark played on it, then obviously word got out. And the next thing we knew, we had Townshend knocking on the door. Clapton wanted to come along. Albert Lee came into the studio. So we had 4 or 5 guitarists straight away. And so it sort of grew over a long period of time, which is how it's how it happened, really.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing. And the lineup on here is incredible. And of course, we kind of pride ourselves. We love rock guitarists, and we've seen most of the people who appeared on this record. But I always thought, well, if there's 10 minutes and there's all these guitar players, how am I going to pick any of them out, right? But then first guitar player, you hear it, it's Jeff Beck right away, right? And that's Jeff's final recording, as it turns out. And of course, not too long after that, you can kind of hear that's David Gilmour. So how did you undertake, how do I decide who goes where and which parts do I use and which parts do I have to cut down there? That's not an easy decision.
No. Well, I didn't make those decisions. I tried to let it happen by itself
Okay.
because I knew we had plenty of time, and I knew it wasn't going to be a case of getting everybody in the room and trying to sort out who plays what. It was something that evolved. I keep using that word, but it really did over a long period. And Jeff's contribution was obviously quite incredible. He was when I gave him the track, he picked up on a couple of lines that I'd given him on a stem that were some of the original lines from the original Going Home piece that were sort of synth lines, or I mean, they became fiddle and whistle lines when we played it live.
Okay.
And Jeff was the only person to pick up on those, and he completely made it his own. So when I received his performance, I was gobsmacked, obviously, and it was obviously it was the beginning of the track and the first thing you want to hear. I mean, it just happened like that. There was no direction from me apart from play what you want when you want. It's fine. And I said that to nearly all of the players. I said, play as much or as little as you want and leave it to me. You're just going to have to trust me with it. And pretty much, I got a lot of information from a lot of players, so I did have to spend quite a lot of time sifting through things. But the one goal, the one aim was to try and choose things that were recognizable. Obviously, David Gilmour is a perfect example. He came in and played for a couple of hours in the studio, and I was just hunting for licks that sounded like David, and there were some licks in there that just couldn't have been anyone else.
Right.
So obviously those were earmarked and used, and the same went for nearly everybody.
That's amazing. And Jeff was so special, wasn't he? I mean, inimitable, and could do things that even someone like David, who knows his way around a Stratocaster, is like, believe me, I've tried to play like Jeff Beck. I can't do it.
Well, no one can play like Jeff Beck. I mean, Jeff is definitely the guitarist. And, the saddest irony of all is that Jeff and Mark were planning to do an album together.
Oh, no.
Mm.
And, the idea had been bandied around for a little while. And literally, Mark was about to call Jeff when we heard the terrible news.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. So it was heartbreaking for everybody.
Well, at least out of it came this amazing playing by so many fantastic players. And the cover is so much fun here. It's let me a little Sergeant Pepper's in there yet.
Well, that's right. Well, it was done by Sir Peter Blake. He was asked to do it. He was asked to be involved in it at the very beginning. So he had 2 years to come up with it. And
Nice.
he was suffering a little bit with his health at the time. So, it took him a little while before he presented us with what we have. And, we were all pretty much blown away.
Yeah, we were talking about that kind of real quick before you jumped on. The fact that instead of having a picture of everybody, which you probably couldn't have done because they weren't all in the same place at the same time, but the different images from the different eras really kind of give you a scope of the depth of the talent on this record.
Exactly. Well, that was an idea that I had very early on, where I thought that you needed some kind of visual help when you listen to the track, because in terms of the video, because there is a video. My original idea was to have players in their heyday, how they looked and how they how they're most recognizable. That didn't quite come to happen because it was just too much to ask to animate that. But Sir Peter Blake obviously did use he used what he was given, because every artist was asked to present images of themselves, and it didn't matter from what era or when. So a lot of the artists produce images from the heyday.
Mm-hmm.
Like Steve Cropper here, looking is Booker T in the MG's best.
I know, isn't it great? And Duane Eddy as well.
That's right.
You mentioned the video that you made for it, and I really appreciate that, because you could listen to the song and just say, that was a great song. Thank you so much for it. But I want to know exactly who's playing every different part. And like Max said before, you can pick out Jeff Beck, you can pick out David Gilmour, but there are some parts, especially where the rhythm section comes in, there's a lot of stuff going on. So I really appreciate, okay, this person's playing here and this
No,
person's playing here.
I thought that was very important because
Yeah.
there are five or more guitarists playing at any one time.
Right.
And, when you've got Nile Rodgers and Sheryl Crow and Sting and Ringo together, you want to know that they're together. And then
Absolutely.
when you listen you can really appreciate each section, for what it is. And I mean, every single section in the song has something extremely special, I think. Yeah, I mean, everybody who contributed was, fantastic.
Yeah, for a track that's 9 minutes and change, I think 9 minutes 40, it doesn't seem like it at all. Like you get to the end and you want more.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it wasn't something that I would want to do in 1 week.
Right.
It would be too much. One of the things that did help was that whenever a guitarist gave me something, I would sift through and find the right places for it and create space. And then I would mix the track. I would treat it as if it was finished. And then if somebody else wanted to come along, I would update the stems, and then I would do the same thing. So which explains why there are 52 different mixes for the song. But it was a good way to approach it. It was a good way to keep it kind of updated and not to, because I think I got the feeling that if I accumulated too much data, it might be too much. So I kind of tried to finish it at each stage, and I think it worked.
Absolutely.
It worked. Yeah, that was an amazing job, sir. No doubt about it. Tell us a little bit about the charity. I know I've seen the Who play several times that were at benefit for Teenage Cancer Trust or Teenage Cancer America. I know that Roger and Pete have done a lot of work for it. Tell us a little bit about the Teenage Cancer Trust.
Well, they've been in our lives for quite a while. Dire Straits helped build the first hospital wing, I think, back in the 90s. So they've never been far from our radar. Obviously, Peter and Roger have been very heavily involved, and Roger's done some incredible work. I mean, really are. And it's such an incredible charity, on both sides of the Atlantic, and they give something that isn't really considered much, you don't really think of teenagers having cancer. And of course, when teenagers have cancer, it's such a difficult part of the moment in their lives. So they need all the support they can get, and the charities offer that, and they give obviously treatment and care. And if ever you get a chance to visit a wing, it's both heartbreaking and uplifting to see the work that's being done.
Yeah, and you don't think about, I'm sorry, Jackson, but you don't think about it. You say, well, there's plenty of pediatric cancer care out there. It's like, yes, but teenagers aren't little kids, right? They're not 6, 7 years old.
Well, all right,
they're not adults either.
They're not kids or they're not adults. Exactly. They're kind of stuck in between. And it's just a wonderful concept. And whenever you talk to the kids who have had treatment, they're so, so grateful for it. Sam Fender is one of the patients.
Is that right?
When he was a teenager, he suffered, and the charity helped him.
Wow.
So kind of poignant.
Yeah, and he was just he's just with Mark and Brian on their little TV show talking about some cool stuff there. That's really cool.
He's a phenomenal talent. And in fact, Sam came into the studio on the same day Sting came in. So I had it was a bit like a Geordie love fest in there. It was hilarious. Sam is quite something, quite a songwriter as well.
I'm sure that if we could get our hands on some of the outtakes there, that would be fantastic to watch. just people in the studio just goofing around and having a good time.
Yeah, well, we didn't really, we probably should have filmed everything, but so much of it was done remotely that it wasn't really deemed possible. So, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Well, and so you've produced this song, but you've co-produced most of Mark's solo albums here over the last 15, 20 years. Mark seems like he's a man with a vision, but he must trust you implicitly to make you like head engineer and co-produce this vision with him. How is that? How has your relationship grown over the years to get to this place?
Well, he trusts me more now than ever, obviously.
Yes.
It's grown exponentially. I mean, we always had a kind of an understanding from day one. I understood what he was trying to say, trying to do musically. I realized his ideas. You know, going back to the early soundtracks that we did together, his ideas were a constant stream of things that I had to realize on. We were using a thing called a synclavier back then.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to create it and make it happen. And I often had a backlog of about a dozen things that he was unstoppable back in those days. He had so much energy. So I'm grateful that he slowed down for a start. I'm not sure I could keep up anymore. So, you know, from those days, to the albums, he's given me, you know, he lets me be in charge of most of the things these days. Certainly all the mixing and now the Dolby Atmos mixing, which he's very much into. Yeah, I mean, we've always got on. We've always got on musically. We've understood each other, and it's grown and grown into something that is, yeah. We use a hidden language for sure. You know, we almost don't even have to talk. It's symbiotic.
Well, why do you think that is? Why do you think you two have connected on such a deep level musically?
I really don't know. I mean, I guess it goes. I mean, we're not from that similar backgrounds, but our love of music is similar, and the things that inspired us are kind of similar. I mean, when I first met him, he played me a bunch of music that he was into. A lot of it was J.J. Cale and Dylan, and I was very much into that as well. And obviously, the country side of things, I wasn't that familiar with the original country stuff.
Okay,
but I kind of understood it, and I don't really know why. I just did, and I got it. So working with him, you know, because we used to go to Nashville quite a lot.
I've seen you play at the Ryman, actually. Yeah,
and Chet Atkins. We did a lot of work with Chet, and yeah, I guess I understood it. But more importantly, I understood him and could often translate for other people, because sometimes he would go too quickly for some people.
And you would just take it from there. Here, I know what you say.
You know, that's why I've been MD for the band for many years, because I kind of translate things a lot of the time.
There's nothing they can tell me I don't already know. Find a bucket of gold, silver within. Leave the story untold.
He's just an open channel, and you're attuned to it better than anyone else is.
Yeah, it's a frightening amount of information that he has in his head.
It's extraordinary. So, but you all started working, correct me if I'm wrong, Going Home came out a year before you started working with him on Cal. You were with Roxy at the time?
That's right. Yeah, I was with Roxy Music. I was actually asked to join the band just before that, but I had committed to a tour with Roxy Music.
Okay.
So it wasn't until after that tour that we met up. And of course, Mark had done that film soundtrack for Local Hero, which just is quite timeless. I mean, going back to the song, the piece of music, Going Home, you know, it's one of the most incredible melodies
it's beautiful
that exists. It's which is why it has such longevity in it, and you know, it lends itself to so many things.
Mark's obviously very proud of it too.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's just a part of our lives, because, like you said at the beginning of the show, we used to end the show with it. So it's almost like I can't get away from it. It just is part of my life.
And it really, I mean, you're talking about a movie soundtrack. It really does enhance the movie too. It's one of a friend of mine. It's one of his favorite movies. And you need to watch this. What is it about? Well, it's about this small town in Scotland. Okay, and I watched. I'm like, this is the greatest movie ever. And the soundtrack really nails.
Well, it's the landscape, isn't it?
Yes, correct.
One of the main characters in the film is the landscape.
Yes,
it is the place geographically, and that's very much the same in the musical.
Mm-hmm.
And you often find this with Mark's music, especially the new album. They're very visual, and I like to think we create these landscapes. Good man. I like to think we create these what are kind of visual landscapes, and tied together with the lyrics, you have a sort of a very filmic image, and a lot of the tracks on the new album fit into that.
and this other great one that I love, Wag the Dog, maybe a little bit bigger of a picture as far as it had some big stars in it, right? But I can't imagine that film without Mark's sounds on it. It's just integral to the whole thing.
Yeah, it's true. And then you've got Princess Bride, which is another kind of
amazing
style altogether. And I think that whole fairy tale style of soundtrack came about by accident because we were using this in clavier and we were using samples, which were, at the time pretty ropey, what I would call sucky samples.
Okay.
And we never replaced them because it just had this sort of mystical, otherworldly sound to it. And it was, and I think it really helped the movie.
Absolutely. Now, I mentioned that I lived just a few blocks from Abbey Road, and obviously a lot of tourists end up there every day. I kept wondering, will I get to see somebody smashed by a car while they're trying to recreate the Beatles cover here? But I always wanted to go to British Grove. I want to learn more about this. We had Guy Pratt and Gary Kemp of the Rock on Tours on our show once, and Mark was recently on the Rock on Tours, and he had a quote said, "I've never had a bad day in that studio." And it's not even because of anything I'm doing. It's just a magical place where the sound is just so good. Why is that? Is it because of all the great equipment? It's because it's been set up from the go as a modern studio? Why do you all love that place so much? Why is it so good?
Well, it's everything. Everything that went into the building and the design and the maintenance and the everyday running of the place is what makes it what it is. It's obviously Mark has invested in it heavily. It's his big giant train set, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It is. But obviously that these days to run a studio to that level costs a lot of money, and he's prepared to invest in it. And it's kind of a gift to the industry in a lot of ways, because artists that go there kind of feel very special, because there just aren't places like that. I mean, for example, there are 3 or 4 guys that work full time in the maintenance department. So nothing is broken. And if it is, it gets fixed. It gets fixed straight away. There's obviously a ridiculous microphone collection.
Mm-hmm.
You've got 3 different consoles in Control Room 1, from the dating from the Red from the late 60s to the TG, which is the desk that Band on the Run was recorded on, to the Supreme Neve 88R. And you can use any 3 or all 3 in any combination. You literally just plug it in and off you go.
Wow.
Everything works. And so as a consequence, it becomes actually a very cost-effective way to work, because yes, it's expensive, but you get so much more done there than in any other studio that I've ever experienced. You don't have a bad day, as Mark rightly says. You really don't.
So even though the technology has come so far with home recording, laptops and everything else, there's still, Pro Tools, there still is no substitute for having a big time professional recording studio.
Well, I don't think so. Not if you want to make a really great album.
Yeah.
It's very easy to make records these days, and the technology is fantastic, and people really do some amazing things with it. There are some incredible albums that are done in bedrooms, pretty much.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But if you really want to go to great lengths and make something that's special, and make something that has incredible depth sonically, that will really lend itself to a format like Atmos, then it makes perfect sense to go and record at British Grove or somewhere like it. Yeah, everything just ties together so nicely, and of course the combination of being able to use the old and the new is part of the ethos of the place. I mean, I did a blues album back 10 years ago or so. I did it in a day with my blues band. Wow. And we used all equipment that was around before 1963, I think, and everything. The whole signal path was just equipment that would have been there used on in that era.
Wow.
And the result was really noticeable.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, it's an exciting place to work. If you've got an idea that you want to do something that, has a certain sound of an era, then there's no better place to go.
And I can imagine there are probably have been and will be more big time professional musicians who have seen it all, but come into this place and the array of toys that they can use. I'm sure, yeah, kid in a candy shop.
It really is, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's fascinating to get Mark or I in there talking about it because we just don't stop. We go on and on and on talking about it. He did a recent piece for News at 10 on his promo, and they came into the studio and they couldn't stop him talking. He was just endlessly talking about it, raving about it, and because he really, really loves it, and it's lovely to see that.
Yeah, he should be proud of it. It's fantastic.
Very, absolutely, he should be.
Oh yeah, you had mentioned in your diaries, and that's another thing too. I was going to say anyone who is interested in this project should really go on your website and read the timeline of how you put this all together, because it's fascinating. And the amount of information on here is way too much to cover. But one of the things that you mentioned was at the end you were working on the Atmos mix with a brand new program.
Yes, it's a system. It's called Air Sound.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that I'm involved with. It's very new and it's very exciting because it has the potential to bring Atmos to the consumer at an affordable level. And you don't need to buy lots and lots of speakers. It's essentially true Atmos from two speakers. It's very hard to believe, but when you hear it, it's completely mind-blowing. And we've done a few demonstrations and people are literally blown away. So it's new and I'm using it already. I'm doing Atmos mixes with it, and in fact, the Atmos mix for the Guitar Heroes track was done using Air Sound. So I did it. I did that Atmos mix with two speakers. Wow. They're special speakers, mind you.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't have those speakers,
and
but still, it's incredible.
I can't really give you much more information at the moment because we're still in development and we're developing a professional listening system that. We've only got prototypes at the moment, which work very well, but the full thing is probably a month away. So we'll be doing some announcements. There's a link to Air Sound on my site, and you'll hear about it.
Okay,
for sure.
Excellent. Right? Yeah, that's very exciting because I mean, obviously we sit here and do this. Because we love to listen to music, and the more the richer the sound, the better. I mean, I'll listen to it on a one speaker, car stereo, but
if I have to,
if you have to,
of course. And Atmos is such a wonderful format, and Mark is fully with me on this, and it's a fabulous way to listen to albums that are of high quality. Mm-hmm. It's a wonderful way to kind of step inside and be able to really hear the quality of the sounds. Atmos gives you that. So both Mark and I are very excited about its development and particularly Air Sound. So we
will definitely stay tuned to that.
No doubt. Yeah.
Great.
Hi, this is Gary Kemp. And this is Guy Pratt. And you're listening to
The Ugly American Werewolf in London
podcast.
Now, speaking of recording an amazing sounding album, it just so happens that you joined this band, Dire Straits, solid band, had some good hits, right before they make an album, Brothers in Arms, which has been, I mean, for decades was the gold standard. Like, if you have a CD player and you have decent speakers, put on Brothers in Arms because it's so crystal clear and use an array of different kind of instruments. Not to mention, Guy, what did it sell? 30 million copies? Was it 40 million copies? Were you ready for this kind of ride? Would you say, yeah, I'll work on a soundtrack with Mark? Yeah, and we'll just see what goes from there.
Well, I guess I was ready for it, but I didn't really think about it because we were kind of on a roller coaster ride. As soon as we finished making the album, we were off on the road.
Right.
We didn't expect the success that it had. And I really must say that it was due to Neil Dorfman that album sounds so incredible. He did such a great job on it with what was very new technology. It was kind of hard to sort of rein in some of those those sounds
digitally. The
fidelity, because the fidelity was kind of it was intense and it was very high, the fidelity, but it was hard to make it sound to retain its warmth, and Neil did that. Neil managed to do it because a lot of the sounds were kind of hard, and those original D to A converters and were kind of agricultural. In the early days of digital recording, it was. I mean, if you were to use them now, you'd go, "Oh my God, that sounds awful." We've really moved a long way since then. So the fact that the album sounds as good as it does, and it was really brought home to me when I had the opportunity to do the Atmos mix of it recently. It really demonstrated how good the individual sounds were, and of course it was a joy to be able to create an immersive mix like that.
Well, it's an amazing record. It affected a lot of people's lives, right, Jackson?
Yeah, songs aren't too bad either, are they?
Yeah. Now it is about ready to celebrate a big anniversary next year. Any plans for I know you said you mixed the Atmos version. Any like deluxe version on the
40th
horizon?
anniversary?
I'm sure there are some plans. I'm not aware of them because they never tell me, which is a good idea. I'm sure there will be some more Atmos stuff.
Good.
Obviously, I'm keen to do as much as I can of the back catalogue, and there's plenty of stuff that can still be done. So yeah, I'm sure there'll be some things.
It'd be interesting to hear that through the air sound.
Absolutely. Well, I'm hoping that very soon you'll be able to. So
excellent.
Yeah, stay tuned.
Excellent. Well, that's great. Well, all right. So you get to Dire Straits, you become about the biggest band in the whole world. You do one more album, one more tour, and then Mark's like, you know what? I don't think I need all this anymore, but I still need this guy, Fletcher guy, to help my music come alive. What changed between going from being a member of Dire Straits to being part of Mark's band and obviously producer and touring band?
Well, what changed was the band, really, the musicians. I mean, we were Dire Straits. We were a good band. We had great players. We got on really well. Everyone was at the top of their game. But Mark wanted something more, and when he embarked on his solo career, he took himself to Nashville and hooked up with a bunch of guys there and formed a new band. And some of the guys are obviously still around, Glenn and Richard, and yeah, they're mighty, mighty players. And I think Mark was keen to push himself, to push his limits with players, with musicality, and they enabled that. So really, that's the main thing that changed. The songs, they just still kept pouring out of him in the same way that they would have with the Straits. I don't think anything's changed there, really. Yeah, he's as prolific as ever.
Absolutely. Do you like touring the way you would tour with Mark? Like, I think when I saw you, you would set up in one city like Chicago, and then you take the plane to Indy or Detroit or Kansas City, and just kind of set up base there versus just going every day someplace new.
Yeah. Well, we figured out. Well, it took a long time to figure out that the best way to do a tour was to get as much sleep as you can, and it's all very, very well traveling on buses. But after 3 months of it, you really get worn down, and you kind of have to be young to do that. So, for an aging band, the way to do it was to use a plane and to fly to the next town you were going to play in, because you'd wake up in that town and not have to travel on the show day. So you were fresh as a daisy for the show, and it really worked. It was obviously expensive. Mark decided to do that. It was his band, his decision. I think a lot of artists would have probably chosen the more financially,
the less expensive route. Yes,
expensive route, but Mark has always been very much into the quality of the whatever it is we're doing. And when you've got 9 or 8 or 7, how many in the band, fresh-faced musicians on the stage every single night, then you're going to have a good time. And we always intended, well, we did always have a good time on stage and together and on the plane, and whenever, because it was like a family. It's just like traveling with a family.
And I think that's important too, because when you have that dynamic, it comes out on stage. Like you can tell the guys who are really, who are really happy to be there together. And then you can tell the ones that are like, as soon as this is over, I'm out of here.
Right.
Yeah. It's funny how you can really tell. And the audience can spot it.
Absolutely.
So it's quite clever, really.
Yeah. Speaking of touring, I haven't noticed any tour dates for One Deep River. Is this something that you gents are going to endeavor?
No, it's Mark has decided not to tour anymore.
That's it.
Sadly, that's it. I'm afraid, but he's very keen to make more records, so I'm very keen to be alongside him and help him. But yeah, we won't see him playing live, unfortunately, anymore.
Well, that's too bad for you, Jackson, as you
It is
missed
very too bad for me, and now I'm going to be sad for the rest of the day. But that's okay. 'Cause I mean, honestly, that is sad. But as long as he still is in the mindset to make music, as long as he still has music and will put it out, I'm okay with that, because it's just there's so few people that can do that can make really great music. Like you said, there's a lot of records out there, and a lot of them aren't that great. But to have somebody who can do this, please do it as long as you want to.
Yes.
Listen.
Yeah. Well, I intend to. Don't you worry.
Good. Well, yeah, I mean, Jackson said you've got a lot of stuff coming up. Anything that you're working on here in the near future that you'd like to tell us about?
There's nothing big I can talk about.
Okay.
Obviously, I'm doing some Atmos mixes.
Mm-hmm.
Still haven't finished doing all the Atmos mixes for all the bonus tracks, but that should be finished next week. I'm doing a couple of little things for some friends who've got bands, Atmos mixes for them. But right now, I'm actually having a little bit of a break.
Good for
which
you.
is the first time I've had a break for a couple of years. So I'm, believe it or not, doing some acoustic treatment on my studio.
Nice.
Because just stuff I needed to do and haven't had time to do it, because my son actually uses my studio more than I do nowadays.
Aha.
So he's been nagging me to change a few things, because he does a lot of mixing.
Is it less expensive for him than getting to British Grove?
Yes, he uses British Grove as well, mind you. He does a lot of he's done quite a bit of film mixing and producing. Yeah, he's coming on.
Well, that's great to hear. You've passed it down. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I didn't mean to. Just happened.
We kind of got that from Oliver Wakeman. It's like I just, I didn't always live with my dad, but he would give me King Crimson's in the Court of the Crimson King. I'm like, wow, I wonder if I could do that, kind of thing. And it just kind of happened.
Well, it's in the blood, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really absolutely.
Is. And music transcends all sorts of things, spiritually and physically, and God knows what else. Music does touch the world.
Well, and that's why we do our show, Guy. And it just turns out that your particular brand of music is the music that we love. And we want to do anything to keep it alive and teach that next generation. I have a 9-year-old who I force to listen to stuff all the time. And, she'll come home, Daddy, none of my friends know about The Who, Daddy. The Who. All they talk about is Taylor Swift. I'm like, I know, sweetie. That's why I'm doing my best for you every day.
They'll learn. I do remember when my son Max came back from school one day and he said, Dad, have you ever heard of a band called Deep Purple?
And you said, son, sit down. We've got a lot to talk about.
No, I never forced him to listen to anything, but he loves all the stuff I love and turns me on to stuff, of course.
That's great.
As your son will do very soon, I'm sure.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's a lovely thing.
Well, that's wonderful. Guy, we can't thank you enough for coming on the show and sharing some stories. Brilliant. Your voice is smooth, my friend. You have a good microphone, I can tell.
No, I don't. I have a Mac mic. I'm just using a laptop.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well,
I thought about setting up an SM7 or something, and I thought, no, it'll be all right. I'm glad you said that, because I was worried about that.
No, sounds good.
Yeah, maybe that your speakers aren't up real loud. It's amazing how much feedback we get, even from folks like you who are pros, obviously know how sound works. I'm like, why don't you just put in some earbuds or just turn that down just a little bit?
No, I'm very much aware of that. So I do have my volume down. So maybe that's why. See, I'm a natural.
You are a natural. You know what you see. Maybe you should have your own podcast here one of these days.
Yeah, well, maybe I should start a career.
Hey, if you say that,
still
but
time.
Honestly, if you were to put together like a YouTube series on, hey, just working in the studio, I know I for one would love to see that.
Would be cool, because
it's fascinating.
That's interesting. I've thought about it. Yeah, okay, I'll leave that thought with me.
There you go. There you go. All right. Well, please, thank you so much. Please tell Mark, thank you for all the music from over the decades. It's meant a lot to us. And tell him that my wife loved sailing to Philadelphia so much that I eventually had to hide this CD from her because she played it every single day after work. And I eventually said, "Where's that CD?" I'm like, "I don't know. Something must have happened to it. We're listening to Led Zeppelin tonight, honey." So thank you, sir. And thank Mark and the whole gang at British Grove. It's amazing what you're doing.
Great. Thanks, Mac.
Thanks. Have a great day.
Thank you.
All right, you guys, take it easy.
Take care.
All the best.
Bye. Hi, this is Guy Fletcher from Dire Straits, and you're listening to The Ugly American Werewolf in London.
Seems like that's the kind of guy we could go down to the pub with, and it wouldn't be crazy, but we would talk for hours.
I would love to just sit there. I'm not going to touch anything. I swear. I'm not going to say anything. I just want to see you work. I want to see how this is put together.
I'm just going to sit in the corner.
Right.
I'll wear clothes the same color as the wall. Just blend in,
Correct. Just to watch him from the time that the person comes in and records to putting it all together to the final deal to then mixing oh my God. It's just fascinating to me.
It seems just like a magical place, this British Grove.
And that's what I've said it before and I'm going to say it again. That's why you need a professional person to produce these records, to mix them. If
Absolutely.
It's, produced and mixed by the band, you're doing yourself a disservice.
Depends on who's in the band. It really depends on who's in the band.
But you need somebody to say, okay, I hear this, but I can take what you've got and I can make it better. And I think he really gets that. And like we were talking about before, I would love to see even somebody who you think is just this jaded, I don't know, person who's seen it all, done it all, get there and be like, wait, I can use all of this stuff. Ooh, there's a board from the 60s. Let me plug into that and see how it sounds.
This is where they made Band on the Run on this board.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. All right. And what's fascinating is they can all work together. Being not that technical, I would just assume, okay, you get this board and you can use it for this song. Maybe you use it for different songs, but it's using them all together is beyond my comprehension, I guess is the short way to say it.
Right. Yes. I can appreciate it. I don't understand it though.
Well, it's too bad to hear that Mark is not touring anymore. I get it. He doesn't need the money. He doesn't need to be away from home. David Gilmour is barely touring, right? He's doing a week at Royal Albert Hall.
Yeah.
2 nights in New York City, 2 nights at the Hollywood Bowl, and that's it. I understand it.
I wonder if, and I know that he did auction off a lot of his guitars recently, Mark Knopfler, but I would kind of hope that maybe not a tour, but maybe, one night at the Royal Albert or, a couple nights, something like that. Nothing big, easy for him just to play live again.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm hoping that will still happen.
Yeah. Maybe come down to Nashville, play the Ryman.
Sure. Absolutely.
For a week or something like that.
Yeah. And I get it. Cause touring is, especially in the United States, it's pretty grueling.
It's tough.
But I can't imagine that he has no desire to play live anymore.
Well, exactly. I mean, that's what you signed up for way before you sold a record, way before you became famous, is playing music to an audience.
Right.
And he doesn't have to play in front of 50,000 people. He could play at Ronnie Scott's,
right,
to the right crowd. So hopefully we will see he and Guy playing live together at some point, maybe not touring, but doing something where we just have an appreciation for these careers that they've had.
Yeah. And I really do hope they have something big for the 40th of Brothers in Arms, because it was such a big record.
Well, that Atmos mix sounds like it's coming along there. Yeah.
I'm interested for that. I will definitely be checking in on how they're going to translate this to consumers. I understand this is big time professional now, but it sounds like they're gonna make it for consumers to listen in your own home.
Yeah, and I have some CDs or DVDs that are Atmos mixed, but I can't say that I know the difference because I don't have the stereo for it.
Yeah, there you go. Right.
Yeah.
It's like having the Blu-ray without the high def TV.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Right.
So great to have a legend like Guy Fletcher on the show, not only talking about his time in Dire Straits and recording and touring with Mark Knopfler and creating and maintaining British Grove Studios, but to hear about this great new charity single, Going Home, the Guitar Heroes version. Guys, you should be streaming this already. If you're not, please start doing so, or go buy it. Having a copy of this physically would be so cool because it has this amazing cover on it with all these legendary artists from over the decades all performing on this. in that Sgt. Pepper's kind of feel to it. It is really cool. It is for a very good cause. It's a great collector's item. And we thank guys so much for coming on the show. A real honor for someone like me who loves Dire Straits and Mark Knopfler's solo albums. And he has been such a big part of that over the years. Just very thankful to have him on the show. We wish him all the best. I know he'll have a lot coming up here in the next couple years. Staying busy as he should be, a man of his talent and ability. So thank you, Guy. And thanks to all you listeners. The show continues to grow. We really appreciate all that you do for us. We appreciate you tuning in. We appreciate all the emails you sent us. And we want to know, folks, did we get something right? Did we get something wrong? Did we miss the point? Did we leave out your favorite part? Hey, email us. Let us know. It's uglyamericanwerewolf@gmail.com. You can let us know the bands, the albums, the concerts, the DVDs, the charity singles that you want to hear us talk about here on the show. Make sure you download and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're thinking about it, guys, hey, look, give us a positive review wherever you get your podcast. It means the world to us. It helps us grow the show. It helps us find more rock and rollers like you and make it easier to get killer guests like Guy Fletcher on the show. And if you send it to us, we might just read it here on the program. Your support means the world to us. Please keep it up. Please let us know how we can make the show better. Thanks as always to Pantheon Podcast for making us part of the family. And thanks to our sponsor, rarevinyl.com, that has a mountain of Dire Straits and Mark Knopfler stuff available in their store. Use the code UGLY. You can save 10% off your entire order, not just one item. Great show, but we've still got a lot of great guests and a lot of great stuff coming up on the Wolf, so you need to subscribe to stay tuned. And until next time, to all you rockers all around the world, be cool and keep doing what you do to keep rock alive.